Welcome to Rewired Sober, the podcast that breaks down the real reasons women turn to alcohol. Spoiler alert, it wasn't a character flaw. It was your neurobiology, your conditioning, and the systems that taught women to silence themselves instead of support themselves. I'm your host, Kate Vitella. I've been a registered nurse for well over 2 decades, trained in addiction and mental health, a bit neuroscience obsessed, but spiritually grounded. This is the science and soul work of a woman's recovery, where I help you understand what's happening in your sober brain and reconnect to that deeper inner truth you've always had, that soul level knowing, the intuition the patriarchy has tried to train out of you. When women combine the science of the brain rewiring with that inner knowing, you stop feeling broken and you start feeling powerful. So let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of Rewired Sober. I am excited today. I have a friend on. I'm going to try not to look at her because we will start laughing. Um, but this is a woman that I highly respect, and I could not think of anybody else that would be a better fit for today's episode. We're going to be talking about ADHD in women, and again, the misdiagnosis and the overlap with addiction and sobriety and the whole journey of womaning here. So today on the pod, I have Amy Liz Harrison. She is a memoir coach, an author of 20 plus books, and the CEO of A-Team Press, where she helps people in sobriety write and publish their stories with clarity, courage, and zero shame. A proudly sober mom of 8, Amy brings big heart energy, irreverent Gen X humor, and deep compassion to her work. She's the host of Internally Amy, where she holds space for the messy, the meaningful, and the magical parts of recovery while navigating ADHD, and she reminds us that telling the truth is the most healing thing we can do. So welcome, Amy.
Kate, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, so I am so excited to get into this with you. We started talking before I hit record, and what I was alluding to was that the previous episode that aired was about the misdiagnosis of women and ADHD, how it often gets missed for years because of various reasons, and we'll kind of overlap some of that. But I myself have not been diagnosed with ADHD. I mean, some of the tendencies overlap. You know, we can see these traits in a lot of people, but I cannot speak to this like as a first person, witness to living with ADHD. So I wanted to bring you on and first have you tell us, like, you've been sober. You're in long-term recovery. How long have you been sober?
So it'll be 15 years in April. So 14 and change,
Yeah, but who's counting?
right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you've been sober a long time, and you were saying that you were about 12 years sober before you got the diagnosis.
hmm
So, and gosh, that's so fascinating to me that but you've been living with it for a very long time. So I kind of wanted to have you take me back to what it was like living with it. I mean, what brought you to the doctor to say, okay, something is really not right here, or it's very frustrating to me?
hmm So originally it was actually what I thought was postpartum depression. And I'm not saying I didn't have that, but I think what started happening was because I worked with the same psychiatrist for a long period of time. He kind of got to know my symptoms and he really was able to listen and hear what I wasn't saying through what I was trying to explain. So I would just come in with this self loathing. And, I'm a terrible mother and I can't keep things straight. There's laundry all over my floor at all times. I can't keep my dishes, like the cycle going from, the clean dishwasher to the cabinet to the table back to the like, I just felt like I was running in circles, right? And so I tried to explain all of these things to him. And for a while, he said, okay, we'll try all these different things. But what I'd really like you to do is I would like for you to test for ADHD. And I was like, what do you know? Like, whatever. I mean, I shined him on for a long time. And he just patiently waited for me to come to my own conclusions that these symptoms that I was suffering from, the constant scatterbrained inability to actually regulate my attention. So it wasn't like I was completely ditzy, but I just couldn't seem to focus on what I needed to focus at the appropriate time. And so finally, I did do the testing for ADHD and I was like off the charts. And he was really gracious and didn't say, like, I told you so or anything like that. And basically just kind of said, okay, welcome. Now that we know what we're working with, we can treat that. And so it was almost like he figured it out ahead of time, but had me come to my own conclusion with it, which I think was really helpful and empowering if I'm looking back on it now. Because the thing for me with ADHD, like many of us Gen X women who grew up with it, but we weren't diagnosed with it until later in life, right? Is the whole typical story that you hear about, being in trouble all the time because, I wasn't lining up correctly on the schoolyard, when the bell rang and we were all going to file back into the classroom. And I would write my name on the wrong side of the paper. It was supposed to be over here and I put it over there. Anything with very strict like systems were really challenging for me. And then I was diagnosed a little bit later with a learning disability in math and mathematics specifically, and the way that the brain processes that whole concept of mathematics. But those were the days where it's not like you had any special accommodations made or anything like that. And so, one of the things that we learned to do, especially back in the day, was just get some coping skills and figure out how to operate as a neurodiverse person in a neurotypical world. And so those skills and those tool findings actually have been life-saving along life's way, but especially when I was diagnosed, it was like, "Okay, what? This actually makes a lot of sense now." And postpartum depression, drinking too much, all of that, I definitely did and I had. However, I do find it very fascinating that once I treated the ADHD, my depression went away. My anxiety went away. The reason my anxiety went away, this is a theory. This is not, you would be able to speak to the medical side of it. But for me personally, my experience was that my anxiety went away because I wasn't stressed out and worried all the time that I was going to miss a play date, that I screwed up the calendar, that I was going to, get charged by a doctor's office because I messed up the appointment. I wasn't worried about any of that anymore. And that element wasn't there. So then I didn't hate myself. And so I wasn't depressed. And
Yeah.
so, like, I had to put first things first. And when I got the diagnosis, it was sort of like, boom, someone just ripped away the curtain. And I was like, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I could go into what I think, but when it comes to what you talked about with anxiety and depression, it just reminds me of the reasons why I teach women about neuroplasticity and the brain, so that it empowers you and takes the pressure off this concept that you're failing and
Yes.
this shame that you're doing it wrong or that you're broken. Like, the more that you know about what's going on in your brain and body, the less you feel like shit because it's not
Yep.
perfect or it's not like everyone else's or, you know, the there's really no other reason that I harp on the learnings of addiction science and neuroplasticity besides empowerment. And I can see you're given as an answer to a problem you've had for a long time. Like, here's what this is. And suddenly it's like, oh, I'm not crazy, you know? Now, I will have to say, because when I read this over on your bio, and I know women are going to be thinking about this when I say this. You have a lot of children.
Yes.
Like, a woman's at home with 2 or 3 kids, and they're also worried they're missing appointments and screwing up things, but you have a lot of children, and you seem to be running this giant show very well, and so how much of it was that there was actually a lot going on and that you weren't crazy at all, you just had children running everywhere?
Yeah. I mean, fair question, and it's definitely true. And I think that because these have been patterns that have been lifelong patterns, right? Like, I mean, my poor husband, he's so patient, but I'm just messy by nature. Like, he'll find cups lying all around the house, just this is just what I am. And I mean, those patterns have been in existence since I was a little kid. And, the whole like somebody will give me something to do, like some task. And it's like, I don't know where to start. So, like, I mean, organizing a toy room, forget it, kill me now. Like, in my mind, the kids are just going to make a mess of it tomorrow anyway. So just shut the door and we'll try again, like after we've all rested and eaten. And so that's how I really was like, no, this rings true. This makes sense. And in a way, it also makes sense that I have a lot of kids because I'm not I'm not super anal and meticulous about stuff. I mean, as long as everyone is safe, right? And emotionally taken care of, and I'm attuning to their needs. And like, I don't care if your room is messy. I could care less because it's your space, right? And we just try and be respectful and get the communal spaces
Yeah.
looking okay. But yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense for me to have so many because I'm kind of a free spirit in that way. So, yeah, it's not that I don't know, if I'm making PB&J for, like, 2 kids, I might as well make it for 8,
Yeah, I guess that's a way to look at it.
you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it does make sense. Well, and also your parenting style, like you said, they're safe, they're healthy,
yeah,
you're meeting their emotional needs, you're not gonna get hung up on the small stuff, and to a
yeah,
lesser degree, I remember my sister telling me a story. She had twin boys, and they were, like, 2, and then she also had a 4-year-old. So that's a lot right there, right? To have these twins, and she had my mom watch them for, like, a couple hours, and she came home, and she said there was, like, shit all over her house and, like, just the biggest nightmare ever, and my mom handed her back the children, which seemed like 800 of them, and said, "Here, I kept them alive." And my sister was like, Really?" But today she's like, "I get it. I get it. She kept him
yeah,
alive, that's good."
totally. No, it's so true. I identify with that. And, of course, over time, it got easier,
Yes.
as
Yeah.
we were in a different position in life, I could get
Yeah.
some outside help and all of that,
Yeah.
but, yeah, I mean, there were some days I was like I mean, I remember being like, "Did we shower today? Are these yesterday's pajamas or last night? Like, what is happening?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course. I'm so glad you said that because, I mean, let's keep it real here, folks. I mean, that's a lot going on, right?
yeah,
And you seem to do it so well, but I
thank
wanna
you.
go back to So you're going to this, therapist, psychologist, what have you, over the years, and I love that you said he wanted you to come upon that knowing of
Yes.
your own. Like,
Yes.
oftentimes when I work with clients, it's very clear what's going on, but it is not my place to say, "This is what you have," right? It's so much more empowering when people come upon their own knowing. And
Yes.
so he's listening to your symptoms, like you're not following through with things, you're feeling very scattered. And then, there are portions where you're over functioning to compensate. And it's
That's
really affecting your mental health to where you're having a lot of anxiety and depression around the fact that you can't be a certain way or do the thing. And living in fear, you're going to forget appointments or, mess things up.
Yep.
So, what did the actual the diagnostic test, what did that look like? Because I've seen those ADHD tests online, and I fill out the questionnaire and I test positive, but I highly doubt I have it. So,
Mm.
what did that look like in a professional sense?
Okay, I'm gonna just share with you the straight truth is I'm not sure how accurate those I don't know. I mean, for me, my experience was I was handed a big old file, and I mean, I don't know. This test looked like it was from maybe like the 60s. I'm not even sure. And it was like fill in the blank in some areas. And it was like, yes, never, sometimes,
Yes.
always.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I just kinda was like, "Yeah, I don't really I'm not sure." But it was more when he went over the answers, how I had answered things, and he was building context out of how I answered his test. That was really more eye-opening for me, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, that rings true." Because really, the bottom line for me and what I personally suffer from the most is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And so, because, when your whole life, right, you're not doing it right, you're not doing it well enough, you didn't follow directions, you didn't color in the lines, it's like we're so used to taking in that negativity that the self esteem portion is just so low, right? By the time that we reach adulthood, that like the assumption is, hey, I'm going to screw it up. Like that is our natural assumption. Like, oh, yeah, I'm going to make a mess of this. Give me 5 minutes. Like, I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to disappoint you. I'm going to piss you off. I'm going to say something off collar that I'm not supposed to say. Like, not on purpose, but just because I'm not thinking before I speak, or my capacity, isn't quite there to really get access reliably to that prefrontal cortex and like not think, I mean, forget planning in the future. Oh, what's going to happen if I don't get my permission slip signed? Well, who knows? I'm going to find out on the day that I can't go on the field trip, And so the executive functioning wasn't there. And so when you're sort of used to kind of dealing with all of that for a lifetime, you get to the point where it's like, I mean, to have a solution to that problem and to have a diagnosis of like, oh, you mean it's not me? Like, I didn't actually cause this? I'm not this is like a thing? That's when I really felt more like, "Oh, this is actually freeing. This is a good thing for me." And it helped bring so many pieces of my life together, right? Because then I was like, "Oh, well, it's no wonder I drank." It's no what of course, because I was taking in all this negative stuff. So when you are that person constantly looking to the environment around you and trying to read cues and like, oh, how am I not going to screw this up or disappoint someone because someone's going to be mad at me? Ooh, okay. I've now learned after all these years, the evidence shows that person is going to be pissed off. If I said I was going to bring the cupcakes to the PTA meeting and I don't, yeah, that's going to piss her off. So it's like that's my motivation. Is it's going to be like somebody's going to be mad. And I don't want to feel rejected again and have somebody have a negative mark against me again. So now it's like I'm learning, yeah, that's my motivation. It's like an actor walking around, right? What's my motivation? Oh, yeah, someone's going to be mad. Okay, I'll do this. So then you find you're into that, the mirroring and the masking and, trying to figure out who sort of I need to show up as in this circumstance. And that's pretty much how I've learned to cope with it, really. And it's not even an inauthentic way because it's kind of the yes and it's like someone putting like a tray of food in front of you and it's like me saying I don't like anything spicy, but then I taste everything and I'm like, "Oh wait, that one, that kind of spicy one is my favorite." So is it spicy? Yes. Do I like it? Also, yes. So learning to kind of be more fluid too in some of those ideas of like, I don't actually have to be owned by this diagnosis, but it is empowering to have it because now I know that am going to be able to get tools and keep those close to my heart so that I can pull them out when I need to work on my self-love and just remind myself, all right, my brain operates a little bit different than the next person. That's fine. Like, what do I need to do to get my own accommodation for this situation?
Yeah, in the previous podcast, I talked a lot about how the masking and the workarounds that women, young girls and then women develop are as part of the reason it takes so long to diagnose them is because women are incredibly intuitive. We're kind of chameleons in that sense. And there's a lot of masking, a lot of people pleasing to overcompensate for the fuckery that is forgetting, or not knowing how to stand in line or messing up as a little girl. There's a lot of overcompensating there. Some of those symptoms I even caught in myself, like I struggled in school, so I would stay up really late the night before an exam and, do extra things for myself to make sure I didn't fail. Whereas, not that a boy isn't going to do that, but a boy is less likely to be masking their ass off.
Yeah.
And a man is less likely to be
Yes.
masking. Um, I don't know about your husband, but mine doesn't always read the room. So,
Same.
I'm like, for that to be a bigger thing. But, like, yes, all
Uh,
that you just talked about.
Yep.
Women are incredibly intuitive, and I talked about mirror neurons as well. Like, we learn how to kinda be chameleons. And
Yep.
this is, part of the reason why you went so long before you were diagnosed, and you said something about, "This is why I drank." What were your thoughts around that? Like, how did that make sense in your mind of what you were going through led you to alcohol or maybe led you to wanting to drink more?
Mhm. Yeah, I think feeling less than other people for sure, feeling different from other people, general sense of lack of dopamine. I mean, all of it, right? And so when I drank, I didn't feel any of that. I felt like the life of the party. I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm looking hot tonight. I mean, I was a hot mess, is
Mm.
what I was. But, it gave me that sense of just everything's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just gonna have that liquid courage, especially in a social setting. I'm gonna be just like funny and witty and I mean, I literally thought I was on my game, like I was the best version of myself when I was drinking. I pretty much convinced myself of that because I felt good, because I didn't
Yeah.
have all the overthinking and the trying to like read all the cues from everybody and, oh, I wonder why she didn't sit by me and all of this insanity that was going on inside my brain. I was like free from it. And so for a while, that worked until I started having consequences.
Yeah, so then you get sober, and you're sober for about 3 years. What parts improved with sobriety and what parts didn't? Like, where were you like, okay, wait a minute, I'm not drinking anymore, and yet this weird shit's still happening? Or what how did that work in your head? Like, you come to that, you know, realization, something else isn't right here.
Yeah. No, totally. And I think for me, the chief thing, like the big paramount like thing was I still can't really manage my life very well. Sure, I wasn't digging through my recycling anymore. Like, oh, did I actually finish that last bottle of wine? Or did I just, I mean, I wasn't like
Yeah,
playing detective every day anymore, which was great. But I was still unmanageable as hell in terms of organization, in terms of, I mean, if you looked at my desk, I mean, it looked like, the storming of Normandy. It was just chaos, dude. And so I still felt a lot of shame around that. And also, just shame in my own personal life from all the wreckage and all of that I caused while drinking, and some of that actually was really just a basic case of learning to love myself because I really didn't know how to do that. And so I had to do a few things, and my therapist, a different person, really helped me to develop those skills because what I learned was, oh, yeah, no, this isn't innate in me. I'm gonna have to learn it. And so I was doing all kinds of stuff that was super cheesy. I thought when I first started, I was doing the mirror exercise, saying I love you in the mirror and buying things for myself once a week that were like just for fun, like flowers or chocolate. And I had to do all these, things. And I was like, I don't know. I don't get this. But I did develop self love over time. And that really helped with my ADHD too. And I think that it helped make me more maybe ready to receive it. When the diagnosis came, it was like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And I was so resistant to testing for the ADHD, right? And it was just like drinking, like, I couldn't imagine quitting before I
yeah.
quit. And then when I quit, I was like, "Man," and I wondered, sometimes I'm like, "Geez, I wonder if I knew how great my life was going to get if I would have quit sooner," right?
Yeah.
And I'll never know. But I believe things unfolded the way that they did for not for, it's not like everything happens for a reason, but because I don't know, that was the path that it took
Mhm.
and that it's okay. But yeah, I mean, my life today, I actually don't know cuz I mean, if I were still drinking, I would be completely Looney Tunes. And it would be throwing gasoline on a fire because I still have to process in my brain, like, oh, when she said that, did she mean this? And then I'll have to stop myself and gently go, you know what, Amy? Okay. Like, just be the watcher of your thoughts. You can see what you're doing and you don't need to go there. You can just let this go in peace and love, but I have to walk myself through it still. I don't think I could do that if I had alcohol on board.
Oh, for sure. And whenever you talk about, when people say everything happens for a reason or the
Uh,
timing of why we got sober, I always think in my head, hashtag Kairos. You know, clock time being chronological time. It's
yes.
from the Greek word, and then Kairos being like our soul's timing. And
Yeah.
also the timing of the place and things where your life story fits in the universe. Maybe the kairos here of your soul's timing to get sober was perfectly well placed in the universe so that you could construct your family the way that you did and then also help other people. I mean, it's just I always
Yeah.
love the fascinating thought of universal timing and how things happen to us, not so much to us, but our life unfolds in a way, if we stop and think about it, that could actually be on a timing schedule for the greater good of the universe, not
Yes.
just us.
What?
Right? Not just me.
Oh
Anyway,
my gosh. Yeah, that's beautiful.
and I thought about what you said about the patterns that you were in, because they say, like, women with ADHD, it's not just a mood. It's not just a little burnout phase. You quit drinking, you got sober, you were 3 years sober, and you still felt this unmanageability of your life.
Mhm.
So it was bigger than just this season. Right. And you compensated in all the ways that I've heard other women. I started coaching one-on-one 2 years ago, and I can't tell you how many women have come forward with these same types of struggles. I remember when you told us at the Sober Curator team that you were struggling with ADHD or that you had been diagnosed. It wasn't even a new diagnosis for you, but I remember so Amy and I met through the Sober Curator, an online magazine that focuses on all things alcohol-free, pop culture, alcohol-free beverages, and we were on this team contributing information. And when you said, "I have ADHD," and then it felt like after you said it, like 8 million women were like online. I felt like saying, "Who doesn't have ADHD?" Right? But at the time when you said it, I was like, oh, I don't think that's a thing. Like,
Mm,
how can every woman have ADHD now? Right?
mhm,
But
mhm,
the more I started researching and the more I started working with women one on one, I was like, oh, this is more than just what other people struggle with, right? This is
mhm.
not just attention deficit. This is not a picture of a little boy squirreling in his chair like we thought
Right.
about, right? So, what is the treatment? I mean, is it meds? Is it like DBT therapy? Is it
Mhm.
systems in place where you color code things and structures or
Yep.
look like?
And, I think it's different for different people, but I'll tell you what it looks like for me is taking my life back in terms of I need to make my life work for me
Mhm.
instead of me trying to fit myself into the regular world out there, the neurotypical world. And I'll give you an example. We just redid our bedroom. And in the process of working with the architect and all this, we were finalizing the plans, and I was like, yo, where's all the built in cabinets? And everybody kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like, that's so 1970s. And I'm like, no, no, I need built in cabinets in the room for all my shit because I know myself so well and I am a piler. And so that's fine. I finally accepted that that's okay. That's how I roll. I know how to find my stuff. But it's also not very courteous to other people in the house to just have piles of shit everywhere. So guess what I can do now with my built-in cabinets? I can open one and throw my shit in and close it. And then I know where it is, and I'm happy because I can still have my piles and other people aren't affected. So I've learned to do things like that. I've learned that when I'm tidying up my whatever house space, for example, I need more trash cans than I think I need. Like the average household probably has like a little trash can. Now I have like 8 cans in the kitchen. I have recycling. I mean, it looks like I don't know what. Like maybe we're, I don't know, preparing for like a nuclear attack. I'm not sure. But I will say that having that permission to, you know what? I'm just going to give myself this permission to go ahead and build systems and put in place things that will support my ADHD and how I naturally am. Because, okay, I deserve it, I'm going to say, especially, after living a lifetime trying to fit into all these other things. I'm going to have my house work for me. I'm going to have systems work for me. So, for example, if a kid drops their towel on the floor and just leaves it there for 2 days after they shower, they're color coded. So I know if I pick up a red towel, I know exactly who dropped it there. So they can't blame each other or play that whole game of it's not mine. So I've had to do things that work for me. And that has been huge. And that's the greatest gift that I've been able to develop through this whole diagnosis.
Yeah. So much of that overlapping with sobriety, like
Mhm.
self-compassion and understanding yourself. I mean, giving yourself the grace of this is how my brain works. This is what works for me. And then I heard setting a little boundaries. I mean,
Yeah.
even if it's something like the shelves in a closet or a room. And I'm wondering, like, when you first got sober, what was like the most ADHD thing that you were struggling with? Like, what was your biggest struggle?
That is such a good question. I'm going to say, the first thing that comes to mind is it's a little weird, but I was given the advice, and you're given lots of advice, right? When you're like newly sober. And I was given the advice that I should get rid of all of the wine glasses in my house.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, that did not settle with me. It just didn't feel right for me. It didn't ring true at the time for me. I didn't find it triggering to drink out of a wine glass. And in a weird way, I almost needed to. Like 5 o'clock would roll around, and trust me, I drank like way before five when I was in my drinking days. But 5 o'clock would roll around in my early sobriety, and I would pour like a glass of Pellegrino in a wine glass. And I just needed that sort of bridge to
Mhm.
get me to the next place in my recovery. And for whatever reason, that's what I needed. And I knew it in my spirit. I can't explain it more than that, but I had an inner knowing that that's what I needed. And I'm really glad looking back that I listened to even those little tiny self cues because, other people were like bad mouthing that whole idea. And I think that the more I like paid attention to those small things, the more that also helped develop my self esteem and my self love, which actually made me think, oh, maybe I am worth staying sober for. Right. And so then it's like, well, then maybe I want to make this choice for myself. And maybe it's okay if I do things this way. Maybe, here's my best friend, and she's not going to any meetings at all and staying sober, but I'm going to meetings. Maybe both things are okay, that we can find our individual pathways. And so the more open I was to those kind of things, but that's the first thing that comes to mind is giving myself permission to look at things differently.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here, but before we wrap up completely, I mean, to me, you seem like such a woman who has it together. I mean, you wrote 20 books? What the hell? When did you write 20? I mean, let's talk about that, right? You clearly have found a way through the ADHD. So, you've written all these books and you have your own publishing company now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and so I wanted to quickly talk about that before we close out. Maybe that'll be another episode, but how did you go from being someone who was disorganized and scattered to a woman who's capable of this?
Mhm. Yeah. Thanks for that. Basically, when I was a kid, I loved making books. And so, they say, like, in What Color is Your Parachute? And, some of those old school books, like to sort of find your way back to yourself is by thinking about the things that brought you joy as a child. I don't know whether that's true for everybody or not, but it worked for me. And so I started writing books again. And then when the pandemic hit, I had time because I wasn't driving kids around everywhere. I was home. And so it seemed like maybe this is a good time for me to write my first memoir. And so I did, and it was super healing. And I have to say that, this is the one thing that I always tell everybody is that the best part about writing a memoir was leaving my version in print form. Because, I think when people knew my story or, they had heard what happened and, oh, she got a DUI and she had kids in the car and all this. It's like, yes, all that is true. And I'm going to also tell you about it. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I was thinking and feeling and what happened. And I wanted a chance to tell that in my own voice. So I did. And it was like taking my power back in some ways, just to be able to have that tangible, um, it was just a tangible replica of like, this is what I went through.
Yeah.
And really, it's just a matter of like, then I went back to grad school and all of this. And so it was just, again, setting up systems in a way that worked for me and owning the parts that I'm not great at and just being like, okay, now I have a master's in publishing. But you know what? I don't have a master's in marketing. I can't tell you how
Same,
you
girl.
successfully have someone buy your book. Are there theories out there and different things that you can do that have great success rates? Yes, but I can't tell you, oh, this is going to sell. Let me tell you, here's a 10-step process. Like, none of that. So I think that was another part of it was just creating systems of organization and asking for help. So I have a great business manager and she helps me with all those aspects of organization and clients and of course putting in, scheduling in that time for a creative time where I can keep writing to fill my own soul.
Yeah. So I see a lot on social media now that women are talking about ADHD, and you see a lot of people saying, it's my superpower. Kind of like how we say sobriety is our superpower.
Mhm.
But where did that come into play with writing for you? Did ADHD actually help you? Was that your superpower, or is that, like, massively cliche?
No, you know what's funny is I think it's not I think it is a cliche, but I understand that truth in it for me. I definitely think it is a superpower for me because I can be rolling down the road in my car and I'm like, oh, that's the story that I need to pull this and this together. Remember when that happened and you were at the beach and yeah, that's right. So I will literally like look around at a stoplight. I will grab like a Taco Bell receipt and I'll scribble something down and it will remind me when I get home, like I need to write that out. Or I'll do like a little voice memo into my phone. And people write, you'd be surprised, people write entire books like that. It's nuts,
Yeah.
completely nuts. But it's also what works for you.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, right? Is that we can create such beauty out of our messes, just like we can in sobriety with our lives. And so it's kinda cool because it's like this key that unlocks the next level that we can only kinda get when we have our wits about ourselves,
Mhm.
when we're not filling ourselves with booze. It's like, "Oh, really? Actually, like, this shit is attainable." And it's amazing. And it's so fulfilling to be able to do some of these things that kind of like, if I was sitting on the couch watching Intervention drinking like I used to do, you know, that
I love
stuff
that for
seemed
you.
like that was never gonna happen. Cause guess what? It wasn't if I didn't stop. So,
I
yeah.
love that for you. Ah, And now you are helping others to put their sober stories out there, their memoirs out there, and, to harness what superpowers they have on their journey, and I love that. I think that's talk about, taking all of this mess and this hand that we've been dealt, right? Struggling with drinking, struggling with neurodivergence, having 8,000 kids, and then, you know, and being a piler, which I love that. I don't know if that's a term, but I think that's great, and I imagine you sharing hotel rooms with our mutual friend Elise and
Yeah.
piling. Did
Yep.
you pile? Or
I piled. Girl, I piled. She's very tolerant. Elisa's a great roommate.
she is very tolerant. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a great conversation. Where can people find you?
Yeah. AmyLizHarrison.com is my website. And then everything on social is Amy Liz Harrison, one word. And
Yeah.
Kate, thank you for having me on. It's just been an absolute pleasure. So thank you. I'm just thrilled with the work that you're doing and changing so many women's lives. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Rewired Sober. You can find me on my Instagram at Rewired Sober, where there are links to catch up with me and all the things I'm working on in my coaching business, or the link tree to my business directly will be in the show notes. I so appreciate you joining me on this journey, and I welcome any feedback or any topics you want to hear about, things that you're struggling with or interested in. I love you all so very much, and I'm just so enjoying doing this with you.